Welcome back to the Photobooth Podcast. I'm Nicole here, owner of Own the Moment Booth and Own Your Mama Co. And I have a very, very special guest today. I am joined with Maria. Hi, Maria. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Nicole. Thanks for inviting me.
I am so excited to chat with you. And if people don't know who you are, would you mind just sharing a little bit about you, your experience, and what you do?
Sure. My name is Maria Bayer, and I am the creator of Irresistible Selling, which is a sort of a unicorn in the wedding industry and wedding and events industry. And it's a combination group coaching program, mastermind program to help wedding and event business owners literally book high-end clients on repeat so that they can, create multi six-figure businesses. And so I combine sort of mindset and sales because my background is in sales and I've booked over 25 million from, corporate companies. And so I've kind of translated that for the wedding industry and events industry and make it in a way that people can sell that doesn't feel like selling. And that's really a new way of selling and not sort of the old fashioned way that people think of when they think of sales.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Already, I know our audience is like, oh, I want to hear this conversation because in the photo booth industry, we are so tied to weddings and events, and that is really your expertise here. And so I can't wait to dive into our conversation on sales and mindset and how they work together. Because I don't think a lot of people really understand that mindset part of it and how that's super, super important when it comes to sales.
It's a big piece of it.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the objections. I can hear some people already saying, I know when I first started in the photo booth business, I was like, I'm a little introverted. I'm super scared of sales. I suck at sales. I'm not good at it. I'm sure you've heard that before. What are some of the things that you would say to someone who says that to you?
Well, it's funny because I am you. I am you, right? So I'm an introvert at heart. I'm the first one to admit it. I consider myself an extroverted introvert, but truly an introvert. And when I got out of school, I went into finance because that's what I thought I should do, right? And I wanted to make more money. So I jumped into sales, and one of the reasons why I did that was A, because I wanted to make a lot more money, and B, I wanted to get out of my shell and I wanted to sort of force myself into doing that. And what I learned was being an introvert gives you advantages that extroverts don't necessarily have. But at the end of the day, I'm here to say that I knew nothing about sales when I started, and I went on to book 25 million in sales. So if I can learn it, anybody can learn it. And I think part of it too is that mindset of what you think sales is. And the way I look at it is sales is something that every single one of us does, regardless of what we do for a living, right? Sales to me is expressing your opinion, sharing your ideas, but in the business sense of sales is really just, in the way we look at it, is someone comes to you because they have a need for something, and they come to you because you're an expert. So you are having a conversation with them and uncovering what's important to you. Why is that important? Tell me more about, what you want, what you're looking for. Then I can in turn decide, are we a good fit? Are we a good match? And if so, this is how I can help you, as opposed to here's my elevator pitch and let me just throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. Because that's sort of the old fashioned way of doing things. And that's not how today's buyer wants to buy.
That is super, super interesting. Do you have some quick tips on identifying old versus new tactics? Because I feel like with specific event services in mind and the event industry, is it different than some of the sales tactics we see out there, from the old versus new?
Right. That's a really good question. I think that there's a lot of good stuff out there, but I never found anything in my career of sales that really resonated with me, that really made me feel good. It just felt phony. It felt pushed. It felt fake to me. And I am so what you see is what you get. So I can't even fake it. And I don't want to live that way. So I think the easiest way for you to decide if it's old versus new, is not necessarily old versus new, but does it feel good or does it not feel good? And if it resonates with you, great. That's most of the equation. Because if I teach you things that don't feel good, you're not going to want to do them. And as a business owner, you are a salesperson first. Like, you are in the business of sales. You just happen to have, a photo booth, or you happen to have a photography business, or you happen to be a planner, whatever the case may be. But sales is your number one focus, because you're in this business to make money. Otherwise, you're just a hobbyist, or you're in it for a charity. And there's no, that's okay. But we have to be upfront with that and honest with ourselves that we're in business to make money. So therefore, our first job is to sell. And if you can do it in a way that feels really congruent with who you are, then that's a big thing. For me, it's rooted in, quality over quantity. So while I could teach you things that will book you like lots of clients, my clientele really want to book fewer clients at a much higher price point, because after, events started back up after 2020, they were burnt out. So they learned the hard way that they cannot just book more clients and just keep, rinsing and repeating. It's too much. They want a quality of life. So our philosophies are rooted in quality over quantity, attracting and inviting versus chasing. And I think that's one of the things that has always turned me off personally, is anything that tells you to chase and to follow up 39 times or whatever that magic number is. I think if you have a sales process that gives your clients all the information they need to make a quick decision, and that process built value, built a sense of urgency, and qualified them and made it fun for them to buy, that's when you don't have to chase. You don't have to go after and, email them 29 times, because then you lose your power and it just doesn't feel good. And I know my clients aren't going to do it. So for me, if it talks about chasing, if it talks about things that feel very disingenuous to me, then it just turns me off and I'm not going to listen to it, because I can't do it. It's just not me.
Yeah, it's just not. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't resonate with you.
Right.
So, on the topic of like lead generation, then, how can someone position themselves to attract those wedding leads, those corporate client leads? How would you say that they could do that?
It really comes down to, how are you presenting yourself, right? How are you presenting yourself online? What words are you using? A lot of times when people, they kind of take a linear approach to business. They start out, charging maybe a really low rate and gradually move up. You don't have to do that. But when you do that, what I see is so many people are focused on price instead of value and the experience and the benefits of what they have to offer. And when you are focused on price, whether it's in your copy or it's in your conversations, or networking, right? I can give you a good price. When you do that, you automatically attract lower budget clients, right? Whether they're corporate or wedding, it doesn't matter. But if you focus on price, then you are projecting your belief that price is the most important thing, or you're projecting that you think it could be a lot of money, right? You don't want to do that, because if you want to level up and get into that next level market, you have to raise your fees, because most people are underpriced to begin with. And to raise your fees, you have to get better at building value and explaining to the person why you're worth paying more. But the key is, and this is why the psychology behind it is so important, when people will spend more for something, it's because they value it, right? And so if they read copy or they're talking to you and all you talk about is price, they're going to be turned off, because that's not what they care about. That shows that you're not understanding them. And so I think that one of the biggest hurdles is people have to understand you are not your client. And what's expensive to you is pocket change to them. So to get into that next level market, oftentimes you have to raise your fees. You have to get better at communicating your value, not pricing, right? You have to shift your focus, because when you talk about value, it's a whole different world. That's when people will pay a lot for what you offer. But if you keep focusing on price, you're gonna continue to attract those budget conscious couples and corporate clients.
Yeah. This is so interesting because I feel like you are speaking to me and like my journey in my business, because that's absolutely how I was. Like my mindset was very um limiting because I just had no concept of even just like my self-worth when I first started. You know, I
Mhm.
didn't really believe in myself because I was never a business owner before. And I know there's a lot of people out there. This is when they start a photo booth business, like this is their first business ever. You know, like I was a single mom. I was raising my son by myself, a stay-at-home mom. And so starting a business was just already out of my comfort zone, and I already had such self-limiting beliefs on myself. And so when I decided to start my business, I just was taking any job I could because it was like I had no understanding of the value of what I was providing people. And
Exactly.
it took me so much time to really get confident in myself and kind of build that self-worth in myself to be like, okay, wait, I actually am providing something of real value here that should be compensated for in that
Yes.
way.
And that starts with you
Yeah.
inside, and that's why that's why mindset is such a big piece of it, and
Yeah.
confidence is such a big piece of it. And it's a little bit of chicken and egg, but one of the fastest ways to kind of get over some of those speed bumps, especially when you're starting out, is really to surround yourself with people that are at that level you wish to be. Because when you see their mindset, when you hear how they think, it really elevates you faster. It's almost like playing sports. You want to play with someone who's much better than you, because that makes your game so much better, so much more quickly. And that's the value of surrounding yourself with people that have done it, because then you can hear, oh my gosh, they don't look at it that way. They're providing a value. And a lot of times it's just, this is having a business is such a lonely thing very often, especially when you're starting out, because it's not like you have a manager to go to and say, am I doing this right? Or, what should I be doing here? You're doing a lot of this alone. And then you're listening to all the people saying all the things, and you get confused. And it's easy to see why people would get confused. But surrounding yourself with people who have already done it, who are at that level, that's where you can really skyrocket really fast and not have to grow linearly. You can really grow like exponentially.
I want to move on to some of the objections that I'm thinking some people watching this may have. And just even in this climate that we're in right now,
Mhm.
it can be very doom and gloom, I guess, depending on what content you are intaking right now. It's an election year. Everyone's kind of down, really. Like we've heard from a lot of people in the service industry, just
Mhm.
the in the economy in general. Sales are down. People are kind of feeling that constraint of pricing and stuff. If we have photo booth owners or event professionals that are watching this who want to take their business to the next level, who want to increase their pricing, who want to
Mhm.
get those more higher paying clients, what would you say to them when they're like, well, the economy, like it's not a good time right now to increase my prices? Like what is your response to those kind of objections?
Yeah, I feel that on every level, because I think it's not just the wedding industry that's struggling. So, number one, I acknowledge that that is happening. Not everybody across the board, but a lot of people, enough where it is a thing. But I do see things starting to pick up. And I do believe I've been in business long enough to know that there are always going to be dips in the economy for whatever reason. And it will always be something. But what's interesting about this time is I look at it as a window of opportunity, right? Right now, while things are slow, we're going to be going into engagement season soon, right? And events are going to start picking up, holiday parties, etc. This is your time to get shored up in how to build value. And so there's multifacets to what you're asking, right? So while there will always be dips in the economy, my goal is to get you empowered so you can charge whatever you want. And when you are able to focus on sales and being able to charge whatever you want, you will not be subject to all those dips in the economy, right? I want you to future proof your business. Otherwise, if you are just waiting for like the next lead, and that's the way you grow, every single year you'll have to get more leads than the year before to grow, and that's not sustainable. We saw that in 2021, 22, 23. We saw that, so we know that that's not sustainable. And honestly, if you're not raising your prices a lot, you are already behind, because I keep seeing things every single day. This vendor, that vendor, corporate type vendors that are doubling prices. When was the last time you doubled your prices, right? So we as an industry are undervalued and underpriced. And so the way out of that, the way to get yourself future-proofed, for lack of a better word, is to focus on sales and not necessarily just getting more leads. Yes, it's important to get leads because you have to have somebody to sell to, right? But if you get better at converting those leads, and converting is a multi-part thing. It could be, and I did this math. I did a webinar last week and I literally ran the numbers because I wanted people to see, I'm such a numbers girl. I wanted people to see, this is how my clients are able to 10x their sales. Literally. It's not because they got 10 times more leads, right? Because that keeps them needing more leads. It keeps them at that same rate and it keeps them at the same average sale. And you don't want to do that because then you're stagnant, right? And you have to grow by growing a team and you're still only making the same margin and that margin is going to go down every year. So my philosophy is get better at converting the ones that you have so that, let's just say your booking rate was 40%. If you book, that's 4 out of 10. If you book 6 out of 10, you just raised your booking rate by 50%. So your sales just increased 50%. Now, if you're building more value, which is the piece that most people miss, that people are not good at, if you build more value, the thing I like to tell my clients, and I tell them to put on a sticky note on their computer and memorize it, the more value you build, the more money your client will pay. And so if you build more value, then what happens is instead of your base package, they'll buy your middle package. And instead of your middle package, they'll buy your top package. And then the trifecta is you raise your rates entirely across the board. And now your sales just exploded. And you didn't have to bring a single additional lead in the door. That's how you get out of that feast or famine with the economy and being at the whim of the economy and knowing that every time the economy dips, which it will, many more times in your business career, you want to future proof against that. And the best way to do that is with being better at conversion, being better at selling.
Yeah. This is so insightful. I have so many thoughts running through my head, but one thing that I know that people encounter a lot is getting leads in the door, getting inquiries in, and then responding quickly, right? And then not hearing anything from them. Ghosted, right? We hear this all the time in the industry. What are some strategies that you have, tips that you can give us on what to do if a client ghosts us once they've come across our CRM platform or whatever?
Yeah, there's a handful of reasons why ghosting happens. I think across the board, the generation of people that we're working with just do that more than maybe previous generations. So I think there's some element of that, which means that we have to be better at qualifying. And we have to get better at our sales process, our intake process. So when we get a lead, what do we actually do with that? And so many people don't have a really good or elevated process. That's one thing. Other people are not asking the right questions. So they're not qualifying that lead. So they're just taking anything that they get and they're not building any value. They're not building any sense of urgency. They're not qualifying that lead. And so of course, a lot of those leads are not going to be good fits because you didn't do any of that work with your sales process on the front end. So that's one piece. But when you have a good sales process in place and someone ghosts you, that to me is not really ghosting, or I look at ghosting different, right? For me, that means the sales process did its job, because I don't want you, if you're my client, I'm going to say to you, I don't want you, Nicole, to get on the phone with anyone that you know ahead of time, or you could determine ahead of time is not a good fit for you, because I know it's going to hurt your confidence, even if you know that they're not a good fit. I just don't want that ding on your confidence, because confidence is such a big piece of it. So I want you to do all these little tiny things that all add up that will help you book more clients so that you can start building your confidence. So to get more concrete, some of the things that you can do, you can tell people, this may or may not be applicable depending on the listeners here. If their only business is photo booths, it's hard to say we don't hold dates. But you can say that we don't hold dates. We have a limited number that we can serve at one time, but there's ways that you can build that into your website, to your inquiry form, to your email, autoresponder. Hey, note that we get so many inquiries a week. We don't hold dates. And that's a great way to educate your clients, because they don't know what they don't know. Like, I remember when I was getting married, this was before I was even in the wedding industry. I talked to a band leader who I loved. I was working a charity event, and I went up to her after the event and I'm like, oh my God, I would love to have you at my wedding. And she's like, great, when is it? And it was about 9 months out. And she goes, oh, I would love to, but we book out like a year and a half in advance.
Wow.
And I was like, oh no, I had no idea because I'm not in the wedding industry. I wouldn't know. So your clients don't know that either. And that's a wonderful way, not only to build urgency, but to educate your clients and build that exclusivity in so that they don't sit on the fence, right? So you're not having to chase them. And that's just one little tiny example of how to do that. But when you do all those little things on the front end, it's going to really increase the value so that by the time you get on the phone with them, they're qualified. Now it's just about connecting, building more value, and seeing how you can help them. So that's my take on ghosting. So part of it is just the qualifying and making sure your process is aligned, right? And building that value so it filters out the ones that aren't a good fit. And then once you do have that process in place, if you do get a ghost, then it's probably because your process did its job. And that's what it's designed to do, because you don't want to attract every client. You want to attract the good clients that are going to be good for you.
Yeah, that's so great. Okay, so for those that are just starting out, what would you say are some actionable tips that you recommend that they take to see improvement in their entire sales process?
Okay, so there's lots of things that you can do. There's an aspect of it where you just want to get your first leads, right? You want to get your first clients. So I have a free challenge that people can take, which we can link to later, that helps you go to your existing, network, make them aware of what you do, and invite them to send you referrals or send you, testimonials, et cetera, et cetera. So there's things that you can do to drum up business, and you have to be kind of scrappy in the beginning. You have to go get business somehow. And it's a good lesson, because you don't know who you want to work with until you start working with people, right? So you have to try it out before you can get into like branding and doing all those things, because you don't know who you're going to like working with. I guarantee it. And right. And you can't speak to that person until you get some experience. So that challenge helps get you some like low hanging fruit and get you some sales in the door. But in terms of shoring up your sales process, right? Obviously follow people that align with your values, that feel congruent with you. There's people that teach sales. I'm not the only person, but I do it in a different way than a lot of people. And I come at it from a different perspective because I came from corporate. And so I learned things in the corporate world, selling to big companies, that small business owners would never have access to or be exposed to, because they were just never in that world. So I come at it from a different perspective, and I teach them things that, the Fortune 500 companies know, but small business owners don't know. So it's learning things that can really give you a competitive edge. But to really increase your sales, first things first, with people that are just starting out, usually it's a mindset shift of, I'm a business owner. It's okay to charge. I don't have to start at rock bottom prices. And if I can impress one thing on people, especially when they're pricing, whether they're just starting out or not, don't base, and I think it was Denise Duffield Thomas that said this, and she said, don't base your net worth on someone else's self-worth. And what she meant by that is, don't base your prices on what everybody else is pricing at. You're not selling a commodity. You're selling a service. That's not a have to have. It's nice to have. You're not selling something on Amazon where price is important. You need to elevate above that. And the best way to do that is to raise your prices and sell the value of what you're teaching or what you're offering. And for people that just start out, they seem to think that, well, somebody so-and-so in my market has so much more experience than me, so therefore this is what I'm capped at, or I have to charge under here. No. What I tell my clients is, how much money do you want to make this year? So let's make an easy example, $100,000. How many clients do you want to serve in that time? 12. Okay. Or let's just say 10. That makes it easier. Then my average sale needs to be $10,000. That's how you price, right? Instead of just saying, oh, so-and-so is charging this, or the going rate is this. No, because I can tell you for a fact from working in this industry for 10 years, nobody is priced high enough. Everyone is undervaluing themselves. And if everyone knew how to sell their value better and be better at sales, the average price would be 3 times what it is right now, at least. Because I can show you people that I have a client that booked a $75,000 planning client. 75,000. There's a lot of room between where most people are and 75,000, but you don't have to do that linearly. And part of that is just thinking differently and being exposed to how people that are growing like that or have achieved what you want to, how they think. And that's the mindset you have to look. And that's equation I gave you doesn't take into account expenses, but of course that's a big piece of it. But at its core, that's how I want people to look at it, as opposed to what's everybody else, charging. Because if you're good at sales, if you are good at communicating your value, there is no limit to what you can charge. No limit. And that gets you out of the feast or famine of the economy.
That's so huge. That's so good. I want to throw this one objection because I feel like it'll come up in the comments. Specifically, a lot of the audience here have the same photo booth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And many of them are in the same area, same photo booth, so same service, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is like 1 or 2 steps that they could take to like provide or show value that is different from people who have the same photo booth, same service, like what would you say?
Yes, that's a really good question. There's a lot of people, you will always be in a market where there's other people doing very similar things to you. So I tell my clients, look at what makes you different. Look at what makes, to the extent that you are involved in the delivery of that service, fall upon your background, what's unique about you. How does that benefit your client? You have to sort of connect the dots for your clients. What is it about me, my background, my experience, my vision, the way I look at things, the way I operate my business, the way I work with my clients, the way I serve my clients, right? The service level I give them, how I make them feel. How can that be a benefit to my client? And how can I talk about that? That builds value with your clients. And again, it's when you're selling the same thing, what happens is people are all selling the same thing the same way. They're selling the features. Oh, it'll do this, that. And when you do that and you focus on, I'll call them features or bullet points is an easy way to think of it. Then what you do is you hand your client basically like a proposal, and the client goes, okay, John is giving me 7 bullet points and Mary's giving me 29 bullet points. So I'm going to go with Mary. So you're giving them away. You're forcing them to make a decision on price because you're not building any value into it. You're not sounding any different than anybody else. So you have to go beyond those bullet points. So if you have the exact same product, what's the service behind it that's different, right? How do you work with your clients? How do you listen to your clients? How do you serve your clients? Maybe there's a service level that you're providing. Maybe there's additional products and services you're selling that make the combination of that better, different, right? You have to look at it from that perspective. And a good way to do that is look at the products that you buy on an everyday basis, right? That you can buy in one of 100 places. How do you make your decision, right? Amazon has built their business on delivery and getting it immediately and instant gratification. So that's what people care about. What do your clients care about? It's not just price. It's the service level. It's all the services around it. How are you making sure that client has a good experience? Maybe you're giving them more props. Maybe you're giving them more tips. Maybe you're giving them a training session, who knows? Or maybe you're doing something after the event that's different than your competitors. Those are the ways that I would build value and build in differentiators.
I love that. Oh, this is such a good conversation. I'm already personally taking so many tips from this. And we have worked together on a lead generation checklist for event professionals. It is a beautiful, full, rich document that I'm so excited to share with the audience on what we talked about today and so much more on how to up-level your sales, how to qualify, what it means to build urgency. Like, this is such a rich document, and I'm so excited to share this with our audience. How else can people connect with you more and get more resources from you?
Yes. So I'm excited for people to get that resource. So for additional resources, you can find all of my links at my Instagram profile, and it's Maria Bayer 1. And so in the link in bio, I have a link to my Book a Client in 5-Day Challenge. I have a link to the webinar I just did last week. I drop a lot of tips, mindset shifts in that. And you can apply for Irresistible Selling, which is my signature program, which we're just launching again next week. So for people that want to hop in and join us, I'll extend the deadline a little bit for you. But those are some of the ways that you can connect with me, or just shoot me a DM. I love chatting with people. And so I'd love to connect with you. If you've got questions from today, absolutely shoot me an email, and I'd be happy to answer you.
Perfect. Oh my gosh. Thank you so, so much for your time today, for your gems of wisdom. I am thrilled to have this conversation with you today. And any last tips, any last comments that you want to share with our audience?
Oh my gosh. Yes. So if you have this weird feeling in your stomach when you think of the word sales, I promise you, if you work with someone that aligns with you, you will look at it so differently. Selling is serving in my mind, right? It's serving, and it's, to me, one of the best skills that you can have. It will pay you for life. And that's the beauty of it. So many things as a business owner you invest in, and you can use those tips or those skills for a very limited period of time, especially if it has anything to do with an algorithm or SEO or anything like that. It's got a very short shelf life. But when you get comfortable in your own skin and you embody that confidence, there's no limit to what you can charge. And that money, that will make you money every single year for the rest of your life. It is literally these skills. I went from not being a salesperson to being a salesperson. It has made me millions over the years and has made my clients millions. And that's why I love teaching this, because if you can feel good about it, you will see your investment multiply year after year after year. It never becomes obsolete, because it's rooted in connecting with people. It's rooted in psychology. And if you learn how to build value, there's the sky's the limit.
Mic drop. Love that. Thank you so much, Maria. And I'm so excited for this conversation and for people to listen. So thank you so much.
Thank you,
and
Nicole.
we'll chat with you soon.